is.
Have you ever watched with Zach? I think it's Galifianakis. Maybe I'm butchering his last name. Maybe that's
Between
somebody
Two
else.
Ferns. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, there's one where he does it with Obama, and at the end,
I
Obama
saw
rips
this.
down the thing, and then they're in the Oval Office,
Yeah, I
and he's
saw
like, "You can't be here, man. You can't just record here." So I wonder if Jay is like in another very prominent place in world history. We just don't know it.
That's funny. What historical location would he be at?
He'd be like in front of the Mona Lisa, like at the Louvre, and there's just a bunch of people around him, but his mic is so good and
They're
his
just
headphones are
letting
so noise
him.
canceling.
They're
Yeah.
literally just letting him set up because of his network.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
they're like, "Oh, Podmaster Jay's back. It's Tuesday. Let's let him in."
Like,
The
and
last
then,
time he interviewed somebody nearby, they made 60 million. So,
oh
you know.
no, oh no.
Well, good afternoon, gentlemen. Thanks for your patience. So we got a list here actually from last week. Jarrett, you said, hey, what are we talking about? And there's a whole list of things to cover. Man, it's like a week goes by and we like have our pick, but we still have our list kind of from last week. Are some of those items irrelevant now?
Yeah, one of the things that I think we went to touch upon it, but we didn't actually touch upon it because of time, was Jay's comment. Jay made a comment. Jay, I'm going to put you on the hot seat here. He
Yeah.
made a comment that ETH
Oh
is
yeah.
no longer a worthwhile investment.
You want to talk
And
about this in our text
oh
message. It's like,
yeah.
what are we talking about? We got all these items, and like, we're going to talk about is
Oh
Ethereum dying.
yeah. Well, it's the second biggest market cap. It underpins NFTs, it underpins DeFi. It's definitely something to talk about. I know we're probably also going to get into some non-crypto related stuff, and I know Jay's got a
That's fine.
Rolodex there of fun stuff. But Jay, I wanted to press you on that and kind of pick your brain a little bit and
Is
just
Ethereum dying? All
yeah,
right.
is Ethereum dying? Jay, you want to speak on this?
Yeah, I do think when we come out of sort of this crypto bear market, that Ethereum won't be as prominent as it was before. And the reason for that is, like, we've been waiting, I don't know, how long is it? 7 years for Ethereum 2.0, or maybe five. And it just, if I feel like it's never gonna come. Like, there are little updates every now and again, but you never really get the full thing. And from my perspective, like, the all of the upside to it has already been priced into the market. So whenever it does actually happen, if it does happen, it won't do anything to affect the price. In fact, the price will probably fall. And then on top of that, because it's so, Ethereum is so widely used as this blockchain for utility, and because the price is so high, it's outpriced a whole bunch of people in developing countries. And so
I agree with that.
the it's become the blockchain of the developed country. It's become the blockchain of the rich person. And so,
Isn't that the same for Solana?
do you think Solana isn't Solana pretty cheap?
Well,
What's Solana?
price-wise,
Yeah.
Solana is as affordable as Cardano,
Hmm.
but there's a brand around it. There's a feel around it that it's the venture capitalist, um, I guess, platform of choice.
Hmm.
So what is this idea? Can you give us more detail about when you say it's already priced in as the platform? Could you say the same thing another way? How do you mean, or what do you mean exactly, or just conceptually?
Yeah, conceptually. So we've been hearing about ETH 2.0 for a few years,
Yeah.
and we've been waiting for it for a few years. It's been promised to us for a long time. I think people have been waiting for it so long that they've already gone ahead and bought Ethereum, thinking that, okay, ETH 2.0 is about to come. So all of the ETH 2.0 benefits have already been priced in. Like, the price has already risen to the level where it should be for ETH 2.0. There's nowhere else for it to go, because there's there's no additional value for it to add in that would increase the price. When it actually does come, me personally, I think the price is going to fall, and that just will push people to sell and cause the price to fall down even further.
Cause the price to fall. That's interesting. Well, and you get to an interesting point on that, because I believe all these cryptos are actually polarizing into their role in the ecosystem. And for the longest time, it's been so hard to explain to family, is Ethereum or Ether, is it a currency or is it a piece of software? And we know that the answer for all of these, we know the answer is both, for all of them. But in terms of public perception, they are gravitating towards one or the other. And as an investment vehicle, I might tend to agree. What do you guys know about code? Are either of you coders? Are you a coder, Jay?
I can debug some code. I probably couldn't build anything.
So I look at GitHub. You guys familiar with GitHub?
Sure.
And I mentioned this, and I like to know about what people are building. What are the developers developing on? Because in terms of a market, if you could look at, if you could ask us where the direction of solar markets is going, and is it going to deflate in the future? Is it going to rise? And we would look at a series of things. What are the major venture capital companies, the big 10? What are they investing in? And have they invested any money into solar? Then you'd look at the solar companies that exist, and you'd say, what's their R&D budget for last year and this year? And are they actually developing anything? Even if they've been promising and haven't delivering, are they actually developing anything? And there's a big question mark. It's hard to tell what the big makers are actually developing on. On GitHub, you can actually see what the developers are developing on. And the underlying implication, though it's not science, the underlying implication is, well, if developers are building things, we assume that a certain percentage of those are always useful. And if they're useful, they're going to get adoption. And if they get adoption, there's going to be a market for it, so to speak. And we can't know this about traditional markets typically, but we can know about software and SaaS through GitHub. I'm looking right now, I've got it up on the other screen, in terms of commits, how much finished or ready code there is for Solidity, which is Ethereum's code base. And there's over 155,000 commits on Solidity right now. If I were to look at Solana, this is interesting. If there's 155,000 commits to Solidity right now, Solana has 112,000, which is statistically almost neck and neck. So that would back up what Jay's saying, because a lot of users, the price is lower in Solana, and Blossom, do we know this guy?
What's up, Blossom? Yeah, we know Blossom.
Yeah. What's up, Blossom?
So Blossom goes, wow.
Wow.
So Solana has almost neck and neck in terms of its commits. So for the statistics that matter to me, are developers developing, that's almost neck and neck. So I'm shocked actually in this moment. I was totally going to come at you and go, no, hey, Solana is showing much lower numbers, but you might be right. You know what else you can look at is nationality backgrounds to the profiles doing commits.
You can do
and
that?
So,
wow, okay.
It takes some digging you have to do to dig. But to your point, when you've got the rest of the world, the developing world, and we're looking at what the developing world is working on, that would be interesting. Would you guys know, Jarrett? I mean, you've talked about having trouble talking to people about Bitcoin and stuff in Colombia, and they are developing. They're not underdeveloped, but they're not. Well, I guess Colombia is considered a developed country, right?
Well, it depends where you are. Just like many countries in the developing world, if you're in an urban area in a ritzy part of town, you wouldn't know it's potentially different from, I don't know, say a developed area of the world. But if you're out in the rural areas, I mean, to be honest, it's the same in the United States. I was recently in Mississippi, and when you're driving through Mississippi, I mean, there are parts of Mississippi that look way worse. And if you look at the stats on like all the poverty metrics that you would go through, then, you know, you could, there's a real argument to be made that much of Guatemala is even better off as far as access to like healthcare, access to water, good access to education, at like roads. But actually, before we go there,
Okay.
because I do want to talk about Colombia later, because I want to talk about international currencies, because a lot is changing, especially with the dollar. I want to touch upon, can you break down what a commit means? Does that mean essentially it's a project? Can I use project as a synonym for commit in GitHub?
Yes. Now, for the coders and developers watching,
I know they may die. They may die.
Yeah. You and I know. So don't call me out. But to the coders and developers watching, you and I know that is not the case. But for the purposes of this show with Jarrett and Jay, we'll say a commit is a project.
Okay. That's a really interesting stat. And I've heard these before. And even before, when Solana was at $6 in February of 2021, I almost put some money in. And then it went all the way up to like 240 over the next 10 months. You know, my thing about Ethereum is that I agree with Jay. I think when 2.0 comes in, I do believe there's going to be some price suppression. But if you look at the deflationary way it's going to be set up, the amount of Ethereum is going to continue to be, you know, less as we move forward. And as people stake it and create their own nodes and create, you know, are putting their Ethereum into this thing, I'm thinking long term it's actually going to do really, really well. And I'm always very surprised though that people think it's going to go to zero, saying that it's, you know, all the value has been priced in. Because one of the other things I want to say is, yes, Solana per coin is cheaper. That doesn't really mean anything. I mean, that's like the same people that buy $1,000 in Cardano because they think it's better than Bitcoin because Bitcoin's 40,000. I think that there's a difference between price and value, and that's something that needs to be taken into account. And the overall network effect of Ethereum is just so massive right now that I don't see it changing. But the thing about technology is whenever you think you're right about something, you give it 16 months and you could be really wrong. So I know that OpenSea has, and Grant, I know you're going to get in here with a point. I know OpenSea for a long time didn't have Solana. I think now they have Solana, which is great. And it's going to be very fascinating to see in the next bull run and the next NFT, which is going to be crazy because, I mean, you know, OpenSea went from having, I don't know, $60 million in profit a month to all of a sudden $1 billion in profit a month in like 12 months. Yeah. And in the next run, I can totally see some OG Solana NFTs taking off because you can get into them for, I don't know, $2,000 to $3,000. Whereas if you want to get into a CryptoPunks and OG Ethereum NFT, you probably need a couple $100,000. So I definitely do think that there is some access there. But one of the things I'm most interested about is when Ethereum goes to 2.0, because it's going off proof of stake, and I think proof of stake underpins security. I'm thinking about, you know, the triangle of cryptocurrency here, where you have, and I'm going to butcher this, so I need you guys' help, but you have scalability, you have security, and then you have missing the third one. I always forget about the third one.
Yeah.
But you guys will maybe can look it up. But as that goes to proof of stake, I get really worried because like Solana in the last couple of weeks has gone down for like up to 8 to 10 hours. My problem with Solana is that I think it's too centralized. And if we're moving towards a decentralized world, I need Solana to become a little bit more decentralized. That's like my bigger thing. That's a larger kind of, we all want to be in this decentralized world, and that's part of Web3. And I think Ethereum may fit into that better than Solana or Cardano. I don't really know. I can't really speak about DOT on that. But anyways, Grant, you want to, or if you guys have found the triangle, please. I think it's
do you have the triangle,
security.
Jay? He's pulling it up. I
can't find it. I'm trying to find it.
So a fun fact about Solana encoding. The fun thing about Solana that I just looked up and had to refresh myself on, this is a feature. This is why the VCs got into it. The VCs got into Solana for several reasons. A main one is that you can code onto the blockchain in standard coding language that people currently know, C and Rust. And those frameworks allow, meaning there's no onboarding necessary for developers. Now, the price, Jarrett, you're talking about, I think we need to clarify for ourselves, but maybe also the viewers, is I agree with you from an economics, aka financial psychology perspective of pricing. But what Jay is getting at is the price matters a shit ton to Steve-O living in a Kenyan village.
I mean,
I mean, it matters huge.
Before you even get to Steve-O, it matters to us. If we all decided that we wanted to do a project and we had Solana and Ethereum, it doesn't matter who it is, whether it's Steve-O or it's us or it's anyone.
Yeah.
If you can build something for a 50th of the price and get the same output and performance.
That's right. And
that's a great argument.
This raises a great point, though. Do you gentlemen think so? And I want to bookend something and not go into it, but bookend it either for this or later. I don't think we're going to a decentralized world. So if your argument is Ethereum is better, which I do agree. In fact, you made this argument about Ethereum just now. If we're going more towards a decentralized world, it might have more of a shot. I would say that the crypto boys out there and crypto girls out there, and myself included, crave a decentralized future, but I don't believe it's in human nature or it's in corporate nature. So they're going to have their way. So I believe the holdouts will stick to Ethereum because it does reflect a little more decentralization and scratch that itch for a longer run than Solana. You're absolutely right about Solana and being down for days. It's been down for days in the past. But going back to the pricing does matter because in a standard business, we would ask ourselves, what's the cheapest I can get my materials for? Then what's the price I can charge for it? And that arbitrage is huge. With crypto, because all the information is right in front of you, the gap between the cost to me, the maker, and the price in the market is very tiny. So our spreads get very small because I can look and say, what's Ethereum at? And I can look and say, what's Cardano at? So you just made a great point. If the three of us were to start an NFT project right now, what would we pick? Now, I would pick Cardano. I just looked at, fun fact, I just looked at the GitHub commits. There's only 30,000 GitHub commits compared to the 155 and the 115 for Cardano, which saddens me, but it's true. But I would pick that because of the cost. But here's the trick about cost. What's the public perception of Cardano NFTs?
Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
And
exactly.
So when it comes to Solana, though, from a psychology perspective, when it comes to Solana, like D-Gods and like, what was the other Dragons one I really liked? And then they have this Mech Warrior thing that I really dig too. Their cost is low, but they've managed somehow to maintain some perception that's not like the cheapo version. And so they might be able to give the biggest run in the next bull market, man. You raised some really good points there. What's your thoughts, Jay? I see you ruminating on something. No? Maybe I misread.
Yeah, I think I'm with you. I think on the Cardano, I feel like Cardano's time to sort of come back to the forefront. They had a little bit of moment in the sunshine, like I don't know, 2017 or something like that, and then the whole ecosystem just sort of flipped on them. It's their time to come back, and then maybe it's time for us to see XRP come back and some of the older ones that didn't really get their fair due.
Do you guys, do either of you find that these days when you start thinking about these, are you thinking about them holistically, or is their use case starting to get fixed in your mind? Like, oh, Bitcoin, digital gold, Ethereum, software, Solana, software, Ripple. Like, are you already categorizing things when you talk about it, or how do you think about it when you bring up like Ripple or whatever it is?
I think go ahead.
Go or I was just gonna say I think I still think about it in like the narratives sense, like everything that's happening with the founders and the ecosystem and stuff. It hasn't fully been ingrained to me, like what the exact use cases of each of these things are yet.
Mm-hmm.
I feel the same way, even just about Solana and Ethereum. I think we haven't even scratched 1% of the possibility that smart contracts are going to give to society.
Mm-hmm.
And until that happens, I can't really wrap my head around which horse is potentially better. If we go back to the hey, you have $100,000 sitting there and you can only buy Solana or Ethereum, what do you do? I think that's a really tough question right now. And I think the safe would be go 50-50, 50K into Solana, 50K into ETH, and then see what happens. I'm interested to see. I'll eat my words, but I'll be very surprised if Solana in the next bull run outtakes Ethereum. I think Ethereum overtakes their market cap. Right now, Ethereum's market cap is more than 10 times Solana's. That's not to say it's not going to swing, but historically, with the last 2 bull runs where Ethereum only came out in 2015, I believe, Ethereum just tracks Bitcoin almost somewhere between 8 to 12%. And if it ever cracks that 12%, that's where it's like it's really going in a high ascension as far as price. But so hold on, wait. I want to add in this real time. Blossom says, I feel Cardano won't do much regarding NFTs. Adoption seems centered on Solana and Ethereum. So yeah, okay. I'm in the flow of Solana and Ethereum.
Yeah.
I want to almost, we can table that if you want to, your whole decentralized world versus centralized.
Sure.
But I think in that centralized narrative, I think Solana may win out. I think in the decentralized narrative, I think Ethereum may win out. But the other thing about Ethereum, like I said earlier, is the network effect. And I think that this is something that is just needs to be kind of spoken about more. And what I mean by that is more people have exposure to it. If I'm at NFT NYC and there's a guy next to me and I say, hey man, I want to buy this NFT off this woman right here. She's going to sell it to me, but I don't have any Ethereum right now in my wallet. And it's going to take me too much time and she's got to get in a car and I have 5 minutes. It'd be easier for me to find someone who has Ethereum that would do that. And then I could Venmo them or give them some fiat or we'd figure it out post than it would be Solana. And I think as you move forward, there's just so many more people that have Ethereum kind of in the chamber, if you will, because they're able to use it. And I do think
even just as NFTs, but just in currency in a wallet.
Not even just as NFTs, just being able to move it because more people have it. You want things that more people have if we're coming down to a transactional value and it having some kind of like value in society. Like I could go to Colombia and I could ask 100 people that are into crypto. If I, I'm thinking the September, October is going to be a conference down there. Maybe we should all meet up. Maybe we should even just do this. Let's stop 100 people. And they'll have no idea who even not crypto bros are, maybe because we're not blown up in Spanish yet. And we'll just say, hey, we're going to give you, $1 US if you just answer this question. And you give them a tablet and you say, what do you, and we get them to show, or what do you own right now?
Interesting.
And of that, what do you own more of? Just those 2 questions. It'd be very interesting to, aggregate that and look at that. I think that should be taken into account. One of the things I always remember is Malcolm Gladwell, his book, and I can't remember the name. I think maybe it was The Sticky Point or The Sticking Point. Maybe you guys have read it. I think it's that book. I always get his books all confused because they're all just fascinating and they're all,
amazing. Yeah.
But if you look in front of you, you 2 guys have a keyboard right in front of you.
Yeah.
And the keyboard, they know, is not the best for our brains. There are better keyboards out there that align with our brains as far as the alphabet. Yeah. But we as humans have just gotten so used to this keyboard, especially in English, that says QWERTY, QWERTY.
Yep.
This is the one we use. So I think about that a lot when I think about Solana. Solana Ethereum. Do I think Ethereum is flawed? Yes. I also think that because Vitalik has come out and been like, yo, this thing's kind of whack.
He's been wavering. And I was going to bring that up before we ended. He's been wavering.
And he's been wavering. And so that's not great, right? You don't want someone to come out and be like, hey, the thing I created, it's got a lot of holes in it. I think that there's a difference between like self-reflective feedback and then also Vitalik falling apart on Twitter. So I hear that and I'm like, oh, this is not good. But I go back to the keyboard and it's like the things that make the most sense don't always stick if the adoption is so great. And I think that could be Ethereum, even as it pushes into 2.0. It may just be so big that it hangs around because I don't really see Ethereum, however, as money. I see it total as an interchangeable software. And they're going to just keep adding on to it. And I think that there's enough people that have, like I said, its market value is almost 11x of what Solana is. So there's a lot of money on the table. And people there's a lot of financial incentive for people to consider to continually solve the next problem. And really that's all people who are building is just solving the next problem, creating a problem, solving it and moving forward. And I think 2.0, I think it will happen. I know that they've even changed the name. They don't want to use 2.0 anymore because it's gotten such a bad rap.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, it's like a crypto STD. You don't want to say you got 2.0 anymore. But I know that they came out, the foundation's like, we're calling it something different, but I will still continue to call it 2.0.
Yeah.
2.0. So anyways, I've spoken for a long time, but please, either of you hop in here.
Go ahead, Jay.
I was gonna say I'll make one last point on that and just follow up on what Jarrett was saying. I feel like we've had so many crypto leaders become martyrs. Like they were the ones out front, and then eventually something happens,
Yes.
and they either disappear, or public perception turns against them, and they gotta head into the background. And Ethereum is Vitalik. Like, without Vitalik, there is no Ethereum. If something like that happens to Vitalik, I also think Ethereum goes down as well. But that's my last point.
Interesting. It's weird. So our greatest strengths are our greatest weaknesses. I fully believe that. And the greatest strength of crypto, we're only starting to learn that it is also its greatest weakness, with the one exception. It could be said the other way. This greatest weakness has become its greatest strength. In the case of Bitcoin, to what we're talking about founders, I do agree. The fact that Bitcoin and Satoshi has this myth of Satoshi not being involved from the get-go has allowed the technology to just be what it is. And there's a purity to Bitcoin itself that I think will make it resilient. It won't have another kid with its children, with its coworker at Neuralink. It won't, it won't try to buy up another thing. It won't be Vitalik taking photos with
That's a good segue, Grant.
like
That's a nice segue. I like what you did there.
Yeah, porn stars like Vitalik, who went to some show in Vegas, and there's photos of him with standing next to a porn star, not knowing, and he looks a little thirsty. So Bitcoin is pure from that regard.
Hot. It's hot in Las Vegas, Grant.
It is hot in Las Vegas, bro. And so I think what we're seeing, like, especially to Blossom's comment down here, which I can't agree with more, I don't believe Cardano is going to do much regarding NFTs. It is so far and away from a technology coding perspective. Cardano is so far ahead of Solana, of Ethereum, of all of them, because it's been in what do they call it, stealth mode for so long. It's a fully operational, complete smart contracts, complete NFTs. But what wins? And in the market, forget the fact that we're being sold on this concept of like the cyberpunk future of crypto. What works for human nature is marketing and market share. Like, we keep pointing to market cap, and I keep thinking, wait, what would it matter if Solana overtakes Ethereum market cap, so long as it's the roads of crypto? Solana's winning the marketing game. And by that, I mean, you can tell, to Blossom's point, in the NFTs. The NFTs, forgive me, the NFTs are just cooler in Solana than they are in Cardano. Cardano is decent. There's a whole virtual world called Worlds Within, which I own some of. It's a phenomenal 3D augmented reality world that's like a true metaverse. It's set up. It's done. It's ready. But it's not sandbox. It's not as cool as some of these other. And then you've got things like this. To your point about size, Jarrett, Sandbox is just, they're just behemoths. There's functions of Sandbox that run on Ethereum, even though Sandbox has its own coin, its own token, its own platform. Some of these are already established. And so if they can just hold it together, if they can just hold Vitalik together long enough, and there's enough adoption that it's just too big to fail and can get to the merge and beyond, I think they will remain the behemoth they are just by first to market from that regard. But I don't think they'll win the currency wars, which means they might not win the market cap award. But in terms of they might become the code, like, give it 10 years, we won't even refer to this in generalities anymore. We will refer to it like, well, what's the software DeFi market? And we'll list, okay, well, here's, Ethereum, it's at the top, and here's Solana. What's the NFT DeFi market doing? And they'll be talking about certain platforms regarding that. What's the currencies? Like, I think it will actually polarize like that for people to get their head around the purpose of the currency, even though they're multi-purpose. Go ahead. I saw someone lean forward. No. Anyways,
let's. I was just gonna say we already burned 30 minutes on this.
No, we didn't.
Hot button issue. Burnt 30 minutes.
We did go
so
30 minutes.
What was the net result then? Cap us off. Summarize us. Ethereum's dead.
Well, for me, Ethereum isn't dead. I think we're also just in a bear market. And I think when things go down a lot, I think people get really negative. And I think Vitalik's tweets don't help. And I think the fact that we've been waiting for Prom, aka 2.0, which is not 2.0, but I'm going to call it 2.0. I think, the limo's ready. People are ready to do this thing, right?
Yeah.
So we'll see what happens. I don't think it's dead, but I was very surprised to hear, that Jay was saying it's going to go down. And I have other friends, if you're listening, who've also said that they think it's actually, like my buddy said, in 6 months, I think it's going to go to zero. And I was super shocked. Yeah. No, I mean, obviously he's a little hyperbolic. I don't think it's going to go to zero, but if it hits $200, that's kind of like zero for a lot of people. So
yeah.
Anyway, Jay, do we want to transition into non-crypto
Hit
stuff?
us. What do you got with that?
Yeah, let's do the non-crypto stuff. But just for anyone who's listening, don't Google Vitalik with the pawns. That's not safe for work stuff. But
no,
just so that
no, not safe.
That's a good old LinkedIn. That's Jay's LinkedIn mind. Somebody's there. He's just like at his desk or whatever. And
exactly.
They're an accounting firm.
Oh, Vitalik with the porn star. I want to see that photo. Like, oh no, it won't go well. It won't go well. but not non-crypto stuff. So I've been trying to hire some interns to do some podcast stuff for me, and someone gave me a link to this internship site in India. It's called Internships.com. And like when I was doing my degree, they always tell you that the people reviewing your resume only look at it for like 30 seconds and then move on. They got like a stack of 100. And I always thought, oh, that's not true. That, they got to be spending at least a couple minutes looking at the resume. It's 100% true. Even me, as I'm doing it, I'm like, like less than 30 seconds, maybe 5 seconds. I've been thinking about go ahead.
Jay, I'm so sorry. It's breaking up a little bit, but I just wanted to ask you if you could outline, if you're giving somebody 5 seconds, which they say if you're in an art gallery, you look at a piece of art for less than 2 seconds. Fun fact. What are you looking at on the resume in 5 seconds? Like, are you looking for just the letters NFT? Like, what are you looking at?
I figured out that like most of the people who are coming in, who I'm getting resumes from, are like music producers, and that's the first thing that I'm getting rid of. Like, so I'm not looking for whether or not you have the right qualifications. It's easier for me to check and see if you have the wrong qualifications, and just look for that and get rid of those people really quickly, and then do a second take around who else is left. And
interesting.
Yeah.
And it's called Internshala?
Internship.
Interesting.
That's
I'll have to look that up. Have you hired for remote workers or virtual assistants before?
Yeah, so I've recently started doing it, and it's been working pretty well. And so I've started like expanding it and seeing if I can find other people to take on some other responsibilities.
Have you, Jarrett, hired anybody virtual assistant wise?
Yeah, but on a project to project basis. If I ever need some data crunching, I just have some friends in Guatemala and Colombia who I can just they're friends, and I just say, hey, what's up? And then I hit them with Zoom. I don't know if you know that XOOM. It's PayPal's international way to send money. Mm-hmm. I've done that in the past, and actually I'm in it's actually really ironic you bring this up, Jay. I feel like our lives are just mirrored, but I'm also in the process of onboarding a couple of people, some writers, to do writing for More Than Blockchain. And because I've got the audio that's pumping, I'm getting my commitment. I've done 17 weeks straight on the same day, getting a podcast out, which is pretty sweet. Small little, it's the small steps. Nice. It's that compound interest, but I am currently interviewing, and maybe some of them are even watching this. So I'm currently trying to figure out what's going to be the best fit and how that's going to work.
Yeah. So I've been working with remote workers since 2004. When Tim Ferriss's book first came out, and he his first book, and he talked about remote work back then, and you should have a Muse business basically that is your money machine that just covers your bills, and then you arbitrage as much of your time back to yourself as possible. What I was going to ask is how are you both deciding what tasks to hand off? Either of you, or one then the other.
Jay, you want to go?
The tasks that make me the least money.
Yeah, interesting. So I appreciate that. So hang on real quick. I got an AC guy. I appreciate that. Do it. My AC's down. Do it. And I got to reschedule my other guy. Hang on. Oh,
Sounds
done.
like a Florida problem.
It is a Florida problem, bro. But you were the one who said your room's hot.
I'm sweating. I'm in
yeah.
a sweat lodge.
So I've got a group, and it's a group out of Gujarat, and I've worked a lot with Indians. I've worked a lot with Filipinos. I've just begun exploring Latin America, but the ones that are approaching me that I have access to are standing on this fact of when people think about my country, in this case, a lot of them are Venezuelan, they see us as poor, so we're going to price ourselves equal to developed countries, and they're pricing themselves out of the work. Like, I don't need the work if there's no arbitrage, right? And so I feel bad being a humanitarian at heart, but when it comes to the business, like, so Jay, you just answered right off the bat without hesitating, that the ones you don't make money at. That's interesting to me because I've told my team only give to the remote workers DPAs, dollar producing activities, because I need to be able to scale that. And this is for context. I have the main company I'm talking about is the website company.
Yeah.
We're getting a chunk of change, and I need to have a spread that I'm not working. So we've got to be able to, there are cost of goods sold, our COGS. So are you just investing, Jay, to get your time back because you're either selling or creating content? You're seeing it as an investment, not a cost of goods sold.
Right. Yeah. I'm trying to get my time back so that I can put that time into making more money. And then eventually maybe I'll get to where you are.
That's too funny.
Florida. You mean Florida?
Yeah,
Florida,
you can just come down. Like, no, I feel that. I feel that. So have you guys hired for work like that ever for something that was part of your cost of goods of something produced, either a product or a service? Just curious.
I guess I have in a way. Years ago, I had a t-shirt company, and all the t-shirts were made. They were made in Cambodia. So indirectly, I mean, I had like a wholesaler agreement essentially with them. So, but it wasn't kind of on this more contractual freelance basis that I think we're talking about now, especially if you're talking about your websites. Or Jay, if you're talking about content creation, getting someone to help you edit stuff so it's quicker. Because one of the things that I'm really looking for, and I'm hoping to find this person in Latin America, is someone to just do video. And I think we both talked about this at length, but if I can just send someone raw video and then they can put on the captions and they can put on all this stuff and they can kind of make it look jazzy, that to me is gold. Because here's my thing. Jay, you said it has to be, Grant, you said it has to be dollar producing activities. Jay, you're like, cream, cash rolls everything around me. For me, it's the other way. I am just trying to find things that would take up my time. I don't necessarily think by getting a writer to help out more than blockchain, I'm going to be making like Benjamins or Ethereum overnight, but I'm still trying to build out that brand. And, so that's right. But what I was going to say about the, God, I think I lost my train of thought because I was thinking about the arbitrage of all this.
Yeah.
I totally lost my thought.
No worries. We can come back. Just raise your hand if you come back to that.
I'll raise my hand.
Yeah, raise your hand. So Jay, I am curious about this paradigm because I'm always looking for paradigmatic shifts. What if you're hiring people and maybe you're doing it similar to what Jarrett's talking about? You already said this actually. You're trying to get your time back, but it doesn't make money. But if you're trying to get your time back, what you're doing isn't making money either. Or is there an activity that you can focus on, that if you focus on it, that is the dollar producing activity? And I see you nodding. So then that leads to the next question. What is the dollar producing activity for what you're trying to do next that you're focused on?
It's building that whole podcast ecosystem, trying to build a podcast empire out here. You can't do it if you're hunched over editing podcast all day.
But what is that actual tactical action? What is that?
It's meeting people.
Talking
to networking, finding people who to partner with, to become your sponsors, to persons who are eventually going to help you to develop products. It's all of that stuff.
That's interesting. Jarrett, you mentioned time, so dollars aren't even really circulating your life. But if you're getting time back, is it because you're investing that time in something you believe will pay off? Or is it literally you're just in a season of life where, Grant, I'm not trying to scale nothing. So if I could just have my time back, like literally it would be leisure. Like I'd read a flipping book or create another episode. Like what is the investment for you?
Yeah, this is a really good question, and I'm wrapping my head around that right now. But basically, I say all the time to myself, my 9 to 5 is Web 2. Even though here we are in the afternoon, I take my times off now on Tuesday. My 9 to 5 is Web 2, and then my 5 to 9 is Web 3. But what I'm trying, so basically, I'm like, okay, how much money do I need to live on? Okay, how much money do I need to invest? Okay, how much money do I have left over to get to clone myself so I can get more content out? Am I okay with that? Nah, okay. Because I really think that during this bear market, crypto winter, whatever you want to call it, up until probably January of 2024, there is just going to be a more and more of a vacuum of silence around crypto, around Web3, around NFTs. Even if you go on LinkedIn now, it's even quieter. Twitter's just gotten super sarcastic and super just kind of like, dark memes about stuff. So I'm just trying to, what's up, Billy?
Billy's my guy. He comes on my show every morning because I open my other show with Morning Cup of Gratitude. And Billy's bet on the show. He's a real estate investor on the East Coast and throughout Central Florida. He's an awesome real estate guy. Keep going there, Jared.
Billy?
What's up, Billy? So I guess that's kind of where it is. And if I have more time, Grant, you and I have talked about this, and I think the three of us have talked about this off show. I've decided the other day that I want to get back in shape. And so for me having an extra hour, exactly. For me having an extra hour to be able to dedicate to that, whether it's going on a bike ride, kayaking, running, just trying to be active is really, really important. And so that's kind of where I am.
That's a dollar producing activity too. And I hate to boil things down to that. So you guys might not know me well enough, but like I started in the ministry, and in the ministry and in personal development, everything was about giving. And like warrior level of giving, like even when someone was obviously taking advantage of you, you'd go and you cut ties, but you wouldn't fight it. You wouldn't take it to court. You wouldn't insist on profit margins. When DoorDash forgot your drink, you wouldn't insist on a refund. And like those sorts of small things, your heart just wasn't in that. And as I've gone through business, I realize everyone is looking out for number one. So I compartmentalize when I'm talking about business. The business does have to make sense. I have employees that I'm trying to take care of, and I treat them as my first clients. I've got remote workers in India who are depending on this income. And then obviously the beneficiaries are my clients. So I try to make sure that everything is done stewarding things well. But I just met today, as an anecdote. I say met, I reconnected or spoke with an old acquaintance of mine. Used to live here in town, moved to a local beach town. And his business was booming, and he just dropped a testimony on me. He said, Grant, we had our first $40,000 month. And I said, that's fantastic. It's a photography company. And I was asking him about this, and he looks extraordinarily well. Well, come to think of it, he offers services that are parallel to mine, website stuff. And it's in another city, and he does more photography now, more videography, but he used to do the same thing. He mentioned that his last package was an $8,000 package. And I started looking at it, and he's charging the same thing. He's charging for the same level of service that I provide at $3,200. The difference, he's fit. He's strong. He looks good. He doesn't even dress up with a tie because it's a beach town. He can get by dressing down, but he is in such good shape and is so self-confident that when he walks in a room, he just charges what he wants, and they give it to him. And so I've been thinking a lot about fitness. Jarrett, you and I talked about it the other day, I think, but I'm like, you know what? It's a business investment for me to leave in the middle of the day for my second workout of the day to feed myself right. Because what if I were so fit, and I have been in my history, I've been this fit, where you could literally wear a trash bag and you make it look good.
What?
Just make any outfit look good, and you walk into a room with complete bravado, and you go, "This is my pricing. I'm sorry." Yeah, that's kind of what Gary Vee does from a brand perspective. So I think it is a dollar producing activity, Jared. I think it's an investment.
Yeah, working out for sure. What's up, Victor? See Victor in the comments.
Is Victor pop up? Oh, what's up, Victor?
Yeah. And Billy Weigel is a crypto investor. He and I have talked extensively about crypto. Go ahead, Jared.
Oh, amazing. Yeah. Billy, Victor. Hey guys. Yeah. You know what it is the other day? And I think Grant, you and I spoke about it. It's like getting in shape, whatever your definition of in shape is For
Yeah.
some people, they want their heart rate around a certain place. For some people,
Yeah.
they want to be able to fit in the jeans. For some people, they want to lower their BMI. For some people, their doctor's like, if you don't start moving your body, you're going to die in like 2 months.
Yeah.
So whatever it is, I think that when you come across someone who's fit, it's the real proof of work, because there is
Yeah,
no
you said this, and
shortcut to
I
get
totally
there.
took this. I love this.
Yeah, it's the real proof of work, right? And it's just an incredible thing. So anyways, I'm currently doing that. And actually, Grant, I'm going to ask you to share the story. I think you shared it with me about the car and the buying of the car. Did you give me this example, or did I see this on social media and I thought that we had this conversation? Okay.
I don't think this was me.
Okay. So
Yeah.
I'll tell you this. My current definition of shape is that I want to brush my teeth without belly fat jiggling. I love that. That is amazing.
And sidebar, you guys got to connect with Shane Mahoney. Check him out. He has
Okay, cool.
Lugos Travel, high end, ultra high end. It can be ultra high end, but it doesn't have to be. Excellent travel packages. This guy did the James Bond experience. I did a podcast before I was even podcasting with him about someone could come in, and at the time it was only $150,000, and now it's like $250,000 trip. But you got trained as James Bond. You got to drive the car. You got to keep the fitted suit, the watch, everything. He's a guy to watch right there. So that's yeah, top notch there.
I'm excited to see his Vitalik package, because you're gonna get flip flops.
Well, he's
like
working on fitness now
t-shirt
too. He and I have been talking through Messenger about fitness and protein count and whatnot. But so what's his car example? Tell me this car example.
Oh, okay. So this is crazy. So I've always felt, well, first of all, let me give some context on this. Years ago, I was living in New York City, and at that time I was a college soccer coach, and on my team, the team was like 15, 16 kids. And on the team, there was probably 11 or 12 native languages. So the kids were from all over the world.
Wow.
Super universal team.
Yeah.
And we were just talking about, I remember one day I had this very interesting conversation, because many of them were not from the United States. And they were just saying, and we were talking about fashion. And if you've ever been outside the United States, you're always come home and you're like, why is everyone wearing pajamas, right? Like, why is everyone wearing Crocs? Like, everyone looks super cash.
Yeah.
And in the rest of the world, if I go into a Gucci store, for example, and I've just come from the gym, so I have a sweaty shirt and I have my like shorts on, I got my running shoes on, I'm not going to get the time of day. They may not even let me in, because appearance is that important.
That's right.
However, we were just talking about how because we like would walk down Fifth Avenue in New York, and you have all these big brand names. We could go in, and because we had athletic clothes on, people would think we're worth more than if we'd gone in with a suit.
Yeah.
Because we live in a society now where it's like, oh yeah, you don't know, that person can be a multimillionaire. They just went to the gym or whatever.
Yeah.
So taking that and then superimposing that over this story that I heard, and Grant, I could have swore you told me this, but
I don't think it was me. I don't talk about cars often. Maybe. Go ahead.
So it was this guy, and he had asked this guru. This is some guru on like an Instagram reel, and
I do remember now. Go ahead. This was me.
Okay, then can you tell the story? Because it's
I'll summarize it for the viewing audience. And Shane, if you're still watching, you'll dig this too. This guy was at a marketing conference, and he was Mr. Guru at the front, and he was telling them, like, don't get sucked into trappings, don't get sucked in the gold, don't get sucked in the bling, don't get sucked in the cars and chicks and all this different stuff. And I think I even told this on the show, actually, or something near it, when we were talking about putting OnlyFans girls in the back of our show, because one of the guys in the audience says, well, I don't know about that, because I see the real proof that when I do the bling things, it's better for my business. And he's like, what are you talking about? He said, well, when I was driving a sedan, my cost of acquisition of a new lead was like $7. And then I bought a Lambo, and it went down to $420. And he's like, your cost of acquisition went from $7 to $420. And he says, yeah, I just put the Lambo in the background, and I didn't do anything else with it. And they're like, what? And he's a nerd. He's a skinny nerd, acne face. He's like, no, I killed it. He said, well, what are you going to do next? He said, I think I'm going to buy a McLaren. And he's like, what? He goes, maybe it'll go down to $2 of acquisition. Is that the story you're talking about?
That's the story I'm talking about. And I just think it speaks to the larger, and it almost goes full circle back to the marketing of Solana. And the fact that Solana is going to put out a phone, because when Solana puts out their phone, you're going to be able to buy it with Solana. I'm going to get one just because I have to get this Web3 phone. I have to play with it. I have to know how it works. I want to know the inside and out, right? I just, come on, you got to, it's like, for techies back in the day. Like some people just got the iPhone, even if they weren't going to use it.
Yeah.
They were just like, they wanted to be up on it to
Yes.
know, you know, to be close to it. It's why Jay and I bought the Oculus, you know.
Yeah.
We want to know what this thing is about.
And it's why, I mean, Elon's talking about Tesla with flamethrowers and all this stuff, and now the Tesla cell phone. And it's like, how is this even related? And can he come up with a reason? Yes. And can he engineer something? If he cared to, when he cares to, he can. But there's something about the flash that I really do think is important. And Vitalik, for going back to our conversation about Ethereum a little bit, he's right now seeming like a person who doesn't know what to do with his success. So he seems like he's a candle in the wind. He's frail, and he seems like he's a candle wick burning out. And was like, I don't know what I'm going to do next. What's up for Act 2? I don't even freaking know. And so he looks like he's melting. And this is why I got to absolutely give Elon props, in spite of his personal life seeming like it's getting a little weird. You have to hand it to him that he still brings an X factor to his projects. And then we have to then reflect on, well, what in the cryptocurrency world is doing this? Our greatest strength is, I truly believe this, our greatest strength is our greatest weakness. The greatest weakness to all crypto is decentralization.
Whew.
It's its greatest strength, but its long-term adoption will be its greatest weakness, because what everyone hates to admit, they want leadership to follow. They want to look up to somebody. This is why Bitcoin will be the outlier, because we all do secretly look up to this dude, Satoshi, who was smart enough to create this shit, but had the zen enough to walk away. And it was like, dude, this guy had the master plan. That's just my 2 cents. That's my hot take.
Jay, what do you think about that?
I like it. It makes sense. Like there are no like large leaderless followings, right? Like you think of, like, you know, lots of people around the world are religious, and there are no religions that don't have a single leader.
That's true. The closest
there are, but they're not global religions.
Not global religions.
The closest is Taoism. It's the closest. Buddhism has Buddha, whether it likes it or not. I would agree with the trend. We can always find exceptions, right? But if we're talking about markets, and we're talking about economic behaviors, we're talking about averages, and we're talking about aggregates and people. I'm an individual, you know. But even when you, Mr. Bitcoin Maxi, even when you are quoting Bitcoin Maxis, who are you pointing to? Michael Saylor. Me too.
Yeah, Michael Saylor or Raoul Paul, or I'm not even really sure. I'm not, you know, that's a really interesting thing that I really never considered. And also Shane Mahoney said, never take financial advice from a homeless person. Great advice.
Yeah.
I just want to call that out before we went off the screen. I've never really thought about that, but it's totally true. Think about exactly what happens to ETH if something, what happens to ETH if something happens to Vitalik? That's a really good question. I think the price would probably go down by 50% in one whole day.
Easily.
I don't know what would happen after that. I think the project is strong enough that it would bounce back. So if something did happen to Vitalik, I think it'd be a crazy buy signal. I know that may be morbid, but you know, news moves markets. But what was I going to say? I can't think of anything in the world that is global as far as a brand that isn't tied to a persona. I don't care if this is a sports team. I don't care if it's, I'm just thinking about global brands. And for me, the global brands are cryptocurrency, the US dollar, and then there's like 5 soccer teams that everyone has a jersey on somewhere in the world.
Yeah.
And all of those are tied to some folklore of probably a player or a team or a person or a personality.
A hero. What'd you say there, Jay?
A moment in time.
Yeah. I mean, even the companies we want to hate, we will look at them close enough until there's an individual behind them to hate.
Zuckerberg, right?
It was, well, he went from hero to villain in very short time, right?
Yeah.
When he was in his studying under Jack Welch era, we all were rooting for this guy who didn't finish college and struck it out. But then we saw the movie The Network, and then he was kind of weird, and now he's pasty, and then we've changed our entire tune about big data. And the same with Elon. Elon's story is changing. You okay with that, Jared?
I am. I just love it.
But the same is flipping with Elon now. The society is deciding, wait, do we like geniuses or not?
Mhm.
You know? But
Yeah.
then you
Is
have,
Elon a genius?
I believe so. I believe
Close to it.
proof of work. Proof of work
Yeah.
says he is.
Yeah.
And even hacking the IQ arena, which I think his IQ has been rated as off the charts, but IQ can dwindle and change. We know that's a very subjective measurement, but what isn't subjective is proof of work. He keeps putting out, and both in children and in other things.
What?
But like
my
even
God.
BlackRock, like even the G Summit, what is it? The G7 summits. Once we find out the CEOs of these hated companies, then they become our target.
Mhm.
And we pick. So I think it's about personas, and I think about the Vitalik, to answer this question, Blossom. What happens to ETH if something happens? That's an interesting article. We'll probably have to cover that one next time, bro. What happens to ETH if something happens to Vitalik? I fully believe that in what Jarrett said, 100%. You're going to see this thing drop. The next question is, does someone step up to lead?
Ooh, who would lead ETH if it weren't for Vitalik? Jay, any
Here's
answer?
the crazy answer. Craziest answer. Cathie Woods. Not directly. As a girl, as a boss lady who has been a fan and called for $40,000 ETH as an investor who's respected, she is the closest thing to a widely known persona that backs ETH as a project. Would she pull it off? I'm not saying she'd pull it off. I'm saying she would be the voice many people turn to, like, does this have legs? Then immediately someone from within the project needs to step up. And I'll tell you what, Charles Hoskins would support it. Vocally. He would vocally support Whisper. What?
How about Mark Cuban?
Maybe.
Mark Cuban could be a really good one. Cathie Woods, I just think she has too much. I don't think someone who runs a hedge fund can be the face of it. I think that's why you have Saylor, who just runs
temporary
a company
prop.
like temporary prop. Cathie Woods is called for $80,000 ETH by 2030, 2032.
Wow. Okay. That's
and that kind of follows the whole, if Bitcoin's at $1 million, then it's 8 to 12%. That's all that is.
Interesting.
In market cap. I think that's where,
that's
where reason. I don't know how she gets to those numbers, but I actually do. You guys have any ideas what number Cathie Wood has put out for Solana? Because if she's calling for an $80,000 Bitcoin, which is 80x from today, what's Solana trading at right now?
33.
Oh, so yeah, $2,400 Solana.
It was up to 300.
Right. So then that's only 8. Right. Okay. That'd be ridiculous.
I don't know if she's predicted much about Solana. I think as this market begins to turn, we'll hear more from her on it, because as a hedge fund owner, she can't ignore the whales and she can't ignore the VCs. She's had obvious predictions about the biggies, but I don't think she's ventured into second tier markets. And when you think about, like, do you guys know the difference between layer 1 and layer 2? I mean, really? So Polkadot is technically a layer 2 Ethereum. Yeah. And which means that not only are you going to have the fanboys and fangirls of Ethereum who step in and clamor for a leader, right? You're also going to have leadership. Polygon is a pretty strong project with strong leadership, and they're a bridge technically, and it's not sole to Ethereum. They're a multi-network bridge, and I mean, there's a lot going on to Matic. Polkadot itself could spin off on its own currency. So, I mean, I think you might see maybe what we need to do is maybe we need to do our homework and look at some of the leaders of these layer 2, second tier organizations. And let me tell you something, with the stakes for the billionaires, the overnight billionaires at Ethereum, I'm willing to bet some big brains are already talking about, hey, Vitalik, are you okay, bro? Do we need to bring Steve in or Stacy? I think they're warming the bench already. What? What, dude?
The thing is, I actually think Vitalik is fine. I just think
Vitalik.
Yeah, here's the thing. I think Vitalik is totally fine. I don't think there's anything problem with him. I just don't think he fits the kind of like very outspoken kind of bravado maybe that we're used to, and a guy like Mark Cuban and a guy like Michael Saylor and somebody like Raoul Paul and somebody like Elon Musk or someone like Cathie Woods, who feel very confident in getting up and saying what they want to say. If you're not a good communicator and you're a leader of the world, that can be really, really tough. And people will take that for weakness or sloppiness or, lack of vision. But really, you just may not be the best communicator. And I think if you go down in history, there's been international leaders that maybe just weren't the best. Like if Joe Biden were able to speak as well as any of us, people would have less doubt about him. But he has
or
a
at least
stutter, he can get lost. I know that, he's getting to an older age. So not being able to be a great communicator can really, really mess up the message. And I think that, so my point being, if it weren't Vitalik and Elon was running Ethereum, would you think different about Ethereum?
100%.
Because if the answer is yes, then it's not so much about the tech, it's about this other thing.
Well, and that's
the
my
human
point.
Dynamic.
That's my point. I don't think the tech hardly matters for anything except to the public. I'm sorry, to the public, not necessarily to the future. I'm talking about from the market face. I don't think the tech matters to anyone except maybe Bitcoin because it's the purity of its model, right? And maybe Ethereum because of the largeness of its model. But I'd like to hear from Victor. Hey, Victor, at some point, I'd love to hear your take on Polygon as a garage sale. So many fake projects. Now, to me, because fake projects isn't an indication of a garage sale. I mean, how many fake projects were there in Ethereum? But I do want to hear other takes on this because I'd love to adjust my view on if something is just trash or not. I know, to his point, I had $400 of Ethereum stuck in a bridge on Polygon literally for 2 years until the fees came down enough to be less than the transfer amount.
I've had the same thing. I've had a Polygon NFT that I've been trying to send to Jeff, and I can't do it. It's literally, we joke about it. It's lost in the ether.
Literally the ether.
No, it's literally lost in the ether. We've now gone over an hour.
That's okay. We could wrap it up.
Well, one of the things I wanted to say, what I've gotten from this is that decentralization may not be the future, right? If you want to go with that. But what may be the future, and I wholeheartedly believe this, is interoperability. When you can play in 2 or 3 different playgrounds at the same time, like you're talking about Solana, you can run code, Jay. I think you made that mention, or Grant. Polygon, if it can be a layer 2 and solve a bunch of different issues, whatever that is, because the future, in order for us to get to, the metaverse where you can hang out with anybody from anywhere and exchange value, you're going to have a lot more bridges than there are walls. And that's going to come down to the software.
Well, and ironically, though, the one we've talked about that is the most centralized is Solana. And Solana, built on C and Rust, lends itself to not even needing bridges, and it's more affordable. I'm telling you, I think it's fractions for transfers like Cardano. And so it's ironic, but we can't just disregard the billionaire investment VCs. They have that amount of money for a reason, and they're smart, and they're in the tech way more than we are. And not that they're God's gift. We got to also be cautious with them, but everything we've said today, I'll say this, everything we've said today starts to make a healthy case in my heart for Solana in the next bull run. I might stack a little bit. I have to be honest.
So this is also a good time for us to maybe put out the idea.
Let's put this out, and then I got to run, but let's put this out.
All right. Is that the 3 of us are all going to put in 100 doll hairs.
Oh, yeah.
And we're going to invest. And I think Solana's got to be a part of that investment just because we're going to be able to track it in real time. Okay. Say, hey, where is it? Where's it going? Because if Solana was up to about 300 and it's down to 30, that's 10x, right?
Yeah.
Ethereum has gone up to 4,500 and now it's down to 1,000. So that's less than 5, So like when you think about the next bull run going 70-30, Ethereum 70 and Solana 30, you may end up at the end with the same amount. So you can hedge between the two if you are an Ethereum head like myself. And I'm just speaking out loud my own thoughts here. Jay, do you want to finish this one out? Jay?
Sure. How are we going to finish it out?
Jay lost
No.
power for an entire
Fuck,
second
yeah.
and then got power back.
I mean, it
So,
sounds
well,
like
let
a
me
cool
end
like,
cap that, and then
it would be cool.
Go ahead. No, go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, my bad. Oh, yeah, I think it would be cool, like maybe if we turn it into like a little competition, like if like we all had during this conversation, I think our own picks as to which blockchain is eventually going to win out. Maybe we invest in that and we see at the end of the bear market, who's got the highest percentage increase or something like that.
Oh shit!
We'd have to see at the end of the bull market who's got the highest.
Yeah, at the end of the
percentage.
bull market. Yeah, we'll
We
have to
put a
maybe
date.
maybe we pick several days. I kind of like the idea of a competition, and what we were talking about for the viewers who watch us now or later is kicking off the show with a quick summary of where our investments are at. Let's talk offline, gentlemen, about how we're going to allocate those funds, and let's make it fun for the people to pit us against one another. I'm already thinking I'm Team Cardano, but I don't know. This conversation makes me lean towards Solana. All right, who's going to close us?
I asked Jay, but he froze. The Louvre's Wi-Fi went off.
Yeah, what are you talking about? You close it out, Jared. Go for it.
What was I gonna say? We'll be back next Tuesday at 3 p.m. Eastern time. And make sure you follow us on, where are we? YouTube, LinkedIn, and Twitter at Not Crypto Bros. And I think Nick Widmer said yes, he'll come on. I'm sure Victor will be down, but I think starting in August, maybe we'll start adding in another, face to the Brady Bunch situation we got going on here to level it out. But I think that's it. So thank you for joining us.
Thanks so much, everybody. Have a great day. Check us out at notcryptobros.xyz.